Thank you so much for joining us today. What a beautiful thing to be doing in the middle of a hot summer day in the 3 weeks at this time when we're mourning the destruction of the Bais HaMikdosh. We're doing something that actually is bringing the geula closer. And as we discussed last week, geula is a time when Hashem's presence will be revealed throughout the world. And what the Baal haTanya is talking about in this text, which is the title of the text is Tzion b'mishpat tipada v'shaveha b'tzedakah. It can be found in Torah, in Likutei Torah, Parshas Devarim, the first page of Parshas Devarim. It also is in Chassidus Muvu'eres, Mayadim, part 2. And what the Baal haTanya talks about in this is how to, just like the Hashem's Shterna is hidden in the world throughout Golus, and geula is when Hashem's presence will be revealed throughout the world, so too, a personal state of Golus is when our own neshama, which is an actual part of Hashem, and so pure, and so clear, and so absolutely whole, when we don't have a consciousness of that, when we don't have awareness of that, when it's stuck in a prison of our subconsciousness, that in itself is a personal state, a personal exile, a personal geula. And by unleashing that beautiful light within our consciousness and within our behavior, within the way we engage in our lives, within our relationships and our day-to-day work, through that we achieve a personal state of geula. And that's what we talked about last week. We went through, there's a beautiful tefillah that we say every single day, Elokai neshama shenasata bi tahirahi. We talked about what tahira means, that it's pure of any otherness, pure of anything other than Hashem himself. That level of our neshama, that place in our soul, has absolute clarity that only Hashem is the one and only power. Hashem is the one and only, attributes all power exclusively to Hashem. That's tahirahi. It's so clear. It's so one with Hashem that there is no separation between us and Hashem. And then Beria Ata Barasa is a level where we become an I, we become an entity, an identity on our own. We have some sort of separateness, or even though we love Hashem and we're aware of Hashem, we still experience ourselves as separate, a separate existence from Hashem. And Yatzarta, we're formed, that takes on more definition until Ata Nafachta Bi, Hashem blows that soul within us, and we experience it as something separate from Hashem, even though it's really part of Hashem. And then we went into some discussion of what that is. Now we also talked about Ata Meshamer B'Kirbi, that there's an infinite light of Hashem, a deep, like the fact that the neshama stays present within the body is a miracle in and of itself, and a great wonder, and is only possible because how could something limited contain something that's limitless? How could something finite contain the infinite? And we talked about how there is something that's bigger than both of them, that's something that surpasses and overrides the definitions even of limitless, because limitless is a definition. And that is a deeper light, a deeper energy, a deeper place within Hashem that surpasses and is more profound, more elevated than any definition, even the definition of limitless, even the definition of infinite. And that light is what guards our neshama within our bodies. And that's the elevation that every neshama achieves just by existing here on earth, just by being. We already experience, we're already in touch with that awesome light of Hashem. So that's all what we did last week. And we also talked about how that relates to personal healing and trauma, which is a very fascinating discussion, thanks to all of you. And now let's take that a step further. So what's the confusion all about? Why is, if we have such a beautiful holy soul, where does our confusion come from? If I know that I am so good and that I have this beautiful force of light within me, where does my worthlessness even come from? How is it possible that I could feel so bad, that I could get stuck in toxicity and shame and otherness if I am I'm so worthy, if my dignity is untouchable, how do I feel that? How do I get so stuck? And the answer is that this part, that our soul is buried within our subconscious. It's in exile within us. And the Baal HaTanya compares this to, he says, every single one of us has this. Just by having a Jewish soul, you have this connection, you have this dignity, and you have this sense of attachment with the ultimate dignity, with the ultimate power. We're empowered just by being. But he says that it could be compared to what the Gemara says. It's possible for, the Gemara gives an unbelievably clear scenario. He says, in the Gemara, it says that it's possible for somebody to, the words are, Ganva apum machtarta rachmana karyet. There is a ganiv, somebody is about to break into a home. He's about to commit burglary, literally, he's hiding, he's sneaking into a house in the dead of night. And at the window of the basement, which he's about to open, he's like, oh God, help me have success in my burglary. And it's such an oxymoron. It's like such a contradiction, right? If you're praying to God, why are you defying his power by doing something he doesn't want? You're praying to God to have success in something that he doesn't want you to do. Why are you davening? Why are you asking Hashem for something if you don't even believe he exists? And if you believe he exists, then why are you doing something that he doesn't want you to be doing? And the answer is that, yeah, we believe in Hashem. We believe that he is true, but that belief is buried within our consciousness, and it doesn't necessarily have an impact on our practical reality. In fact, by nature, it does not have any impact on our practical reality. It's distant from us. It's not in our consciousness at all. And the Baal HaTanya defines 3 levels in the process of releasing our soul into a state of consciousness. He says, first we have the level of haDa'ah, which means we acknowledge that it's there. The part of us that always acknowledges Hashem's truth. And we're going to get back into that. We'll circle back to this in a minute because we didn't explain what that is, but I just want to first say that there are 3 steps. The first is that place in our soul that just acknowledges, just by being, we acknowledge Hashem's existence. We acknowledge Hashem's authority, his authoritative presence, his power in the world. Then we have Ahava, which is, okay, so if Hashem is my power and he's the one who's giving me life, then I want to love him, because if I love anything, he's the only, he's giving me everything. So I want to develop a love for Hashem. And then from that place of love, we have the power to actually experience that light that's within us. And we actually have, we experience, we could draw down his energy, his presence can be manifest in this world. And that level, that action is called bracha. Bracha means blessing. And very often it's used to say, oh, I bless Hashem, I thank Hashem. But the word bracha comes from the word which means bricha, like pool. And it represents the ability to draw down spiritual energy into this world. So we move from a place of no consciousness of our neshama, but it's there acknowledging Hashem. And from there, we move to develop a love for Hashem. And from a place of love, we are empowered to draw down his energy, to unleash his light into our consciousness and into the world around us. So, but let's go back to, what does it look like? What does it mean that we acknowledge Hashem? What do you mean does Hashem need our validation? Does he need us to validate his existence? Does he need us to agree, oh yeah, you're right. Like, where does that even come from? So for that, I'm gonna jump into the text of the mimer for just a minute. We're gonna start from 18 lines from the top of the page on the right side, on the right column, okay? 18 lines from the top of the page, and the page that says, Tzion b'mishpati pada on the top. So the next part of this tefillah that we say is, Kol zman shahanashama b'kirbi moida ani. Moida ani, I admit Maidani means I thank, but it also means I admit. And I admit is the words that is the meaning that the Baal HaTanya is going to question. So every single second, every single moment, all the time, constantly, that the neshama is within me, I admit that Hashem is true. Kol echad ve'echad yachal lahidus Hashem. Every single one of us has this capacity to acknowledge Hashem's absolute power in the universe. Okay, but this is not enough, because just acknowledging is not enough. We want to get to a place where we can actually experience it in a revealed way. We want to bring down this energy into our consciousness. We want to unleash it into our lives, and into the world around us. That's a higher level than haida'ah, than just acknowledging. In order to understand that, we want to first understand, what does acknowledging mean? What does it mean to acknowledge that Hashem is true? Hashem doesn't need our validation. In halacha, there's a Torah law that if a parent tells you something, you're not supposed to say, oh, you're right. Why don't we say to a parent, you're right? Because that implies that they could possibly be wrong, right? If you tell me something and I say, oh, you're right, that means that it's possible for me to also say you're wrong. That's how sensitive the halakha is. We don't say you're right to just anybody, okay? We say right to colleagues, but if somebody is our parent, or somebody is, I'll say Hashem himself, what does it mean to say you're right? Of course he's right. Of course he's right. In the Gemara, which the Baal HaTanya brings us an example from the Gemara, the Chachamim, the great sages of the Gemara, were having a disagreement, and everyone said one opinion, and Rabbi Meir said something else. And the Chachamim said, okay, Rabbi Meir, you are right. We surrender to your opinion. We surrender to your viewpoint. We surrender to your perspective. And that's when the word haida'ah is used. So the word haida'ah, you are right, means we have a difference of opinion. We have one perspective, but we surrender it. We say, okay, even though this is what it looks like to me, I acknowledge that you're right. Now, we could understand that experience could happen between human beings, but where is there room to say that could happen between us and our Creator? Of course Hashem is right. And let's read that question in the language of the Baal HaTanya. He says, Ach, ki anu sheichne mata. Okay, so he says, how can we even say this to Hashem? And he answers the following answer, which is so profound. He says, here's what's happening in our lives. You see, we look around the world, and what do we see? We see existence. Flowers, grass, trees, people, money, bills, tables, furniture, houses, cars, whatever you see in your room, in your house, or when you look out the window or around the world. There are so many different things. And we're human people. And we're humans, human people. What other kind of people are there, right? We're humans. So whatever we see is real. Whatever we could touch and feel and smell and experience with our physical senses, that has validity. That's real. That's true. But whatever we cannot touch, we call it abstract. We call it lofty. We call it, something that we only believe, not something that we know, not something that we can experience, that we can touch and smell and taste. And so to us, being human, being physical beings, whatever we see is real, and Hashem is abstract. Hashem's presence is something that we have to work hard to see. And in a certain sense, the physical reality will always be more real to us than Hashem's reality. And so that's our challenge. That's our confusion. In fact, when we say the world is created something from nothing, what's the nothing? Hashem. Because nothing is also a definition, right? The world was created something from nothing. That means the something is the world, and the nothing is Hashem's presence. So we look at it like the something from nothing means something. I now have a computer in the space where before I only had Hashem. And just because I feel like this is important, the word nothing, ayin, it doesn't mean nothing as in garbage or valueless. When we use the word nothing in Kabbalistic terms, nothing is the deepest part, is the most spiritual energy in the world. The nothing, we're calling it nothing because nothing could describe it. Nothing, it is beyond any description, it's beyond any expression. It's absolute nothingness. And just to bring it in context of a tefillah that many of you are familiar with, we often say, Shir HaMailos, Esa Einai El Hashem, I lift my eyes to Hashem, Me'ayin Yavai Ezri. From where? Me'ayin, we translate it from where, but Me'ayin really means from nothing. From nothing will come my help. And what we're really saying, what we understand from Sifrei Chasidus explains a deeper meaning from, what do you mean? We're saying, I raise my eyes to Hashem and I say, from nothing will come my help. No, we say, Hashem, from that place of your nothingness, even though it looks like nothing, and even it's describable by nothing, from that nothingness, that's where my help is going to come, from that essence of Hashem. And then we go on to say, Ezri me'im Hashem, my salvation, my help will come from Hashem. Then we actually use the name of Hashem, because it's not enough. We want practical, physical blessings manifest in our reality, in our practical day-to-day physical reality. We don't just want it in the nothingness of the celestial, heavens and the Kabbalistic terms of Hashem's essence. We want it to come down, Ezri Me'im Hashem, from that Yud Ke Vav Ke, from that name of Hashem that represents the transportation, the process through which Hashem's light comes into the world. And that's why we say, Ezri Me'im Hashem, Oisei Shamayim Va'aretz, the one who creates heaven and earth, not just the spiritual process through which it comes down through the spiritual worlds, but Oisei Shamayim Va'aretz, Hashem's blessings as they come into the heavens and the earth where we live. So that's the word ayin. Ayin means Hashem's deepest self, Hashem's nothingness. So to us, the world was created from nothing and it was to something, right? Now, before creation, there was nothing, and now there's something. And now when I use the word nothing, I'm using it to mean something else. I'm using it to mean that it is nothing of importance, nothing of relevance, nothing that's significant to my day-to-day reality. Because to us, when I wake up in the morning, what I see is the bills I have to pay, the things I have to do, the people I have to meet, the places I have to go, right? I do not see Hashem. And in that sense, Hashem's presence is nothing. So from our perspective, it's me'ayin liyesh. Creation is from nothing to something. But from Hashem's perspective, Hashem is the absolute truth. And Hashem is the only true existence, because everything else in the world only exists because Hashem is animating it at this very moment. Hashem is allowing it to exist, right? This is a primary teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that creation is reenacted every single second, every single millisecond. This world is only created because at this moment, Hashem is animating it. If for 1 second Hashem would not animate it, it would cease to exist. It would revert to its absolute nothingness. So this minute, the world exists because Hashem is animating it. So that means that the only true existence, the only absolute existence is Hashem himself. Because our existence is nothing. It only depends on Hashem. It's hanging on Hashem's animation of it. We don't have a real existence. We don't have a substantial existence outside of Hashem's presence. We have nothing outside of Hashem's animation of us. in giving us life. We're the only reason we're alive, the only reason why we're here is because this minute Hashem is giving us that life. So from Hashem's perspective, Hashem is the truth. And anything that conceals his truth is that much further from the truth. Right? So from our perspective, anything that's more real, that's more tangible, has more validity, and has more of a stronger existence. But from Hashem's perspective, anything that conceals him more is more tangible. And the more tangible, meaning the more it conceals Hashem, the further away it is from the truth. So that's the difference. From our perspective, whatever is more tangible is more relevant and more real. We feel more connected to it, and it's more true to us. But from Hashem's perspective, whatever is more tangible means that it's more concealing his presence, which by definition means it's further from the truth. So that's the definition of our confusion. That is why we have that confusion, and that's the definition. That is our confusion in a nutshell. That we, it's like Reb Levi Yitzchak of Barditchev famously said. He said, Hashem, you put all of your truth, all of it, your infinite truth, into a little book, and then you put your hiddenness and your otherness, other powers and other reality all over the place. If you would have done it the other way around, put your truth all over the place and put temptations and weakness and otherness, confusions, distractions, put all that in a book. You'll see how much clarity we'll have then, But the fact is, this is how Hashem created the world, because he wants us to choose him and to choose his truth and to choose the truth of our soul, despite the confusion of our perspective, where whatever is more tangible seems more relevant and seems more practical and seems more real. Now I'm going to go back to the text, okay? Okay, so we, dwellers of the earth, we inhabit this earth. So from our perspective, creation is something from nothing. Shashamayim ba'aretz ushmei hashamayim, the heavens and the earth and all that we can, shmei hashamayim, all the heavens and everything that we could see, davar hayesh hanira le'einenu, is something that exists and is visible to our eyes. Uma shelamayla, and whatever is above that, hu ha'ayin, that's the nothingness. Aval etzlo yisbarach, but to Hashem, from Hashem's perspective, hu behefech min ma shenir leinu, this opposite of what we see in our perspective. Kikula kamei koloi mamish chashiv, because for Hashem, everything, I hate to say it in such complicated words, but everything is nothing compared to his true existence. Everything is nothing but his empowerment of it. Everything is nothing but his light, his animation, his energy, his life force. And that's what we say when we say moedim anachnu, we acknowledge, or we say it in the personal form is moida ani kol zaman shanashama bekirbi, moida ani, I admit, I acknowledge, I surrender my opinion that even though from my perspective it looks like Hashem, you are irrelevant, you are abstract, I surrender my perspective. The truth is that God is real and everything else is abstract. That's the truth. And that's what we say that's what we mean when we say, I get it. For me, it looks like, because I'm human, it looks like everything that's spiritual is abstract. It's an energy that you cannot see. You have to kind of work towards experiencing it. But everything that I could see and everything that I could touch is relevant and practical and has automatic validity. And every single one of us, because we have the soul of a Jew, the kol echad ve'echad miYisrael, every single one of us, yesh by bechinas haida azu, we have it in our soul. It's part of our spiritual DNA to have this ability, not just this ability, but the clarity of Ani maida lecha, right? Maida ani lefanecha. I acknowledge, I surrender my perspective. I acknowledge that your perspective is true, that you are true, and everything else is only abstract, because everything else is just exists only because you are animating it. Now, it's very nice to know that we have this ability, not just this ability, but the active force within us that has absolute clarity and sees Hashem for who he is, and everything else is just a distraction. We know that, but all of that is a distance. We experience it as a distance. I'm gonna skip now a bunch of lines, and we're gonna go back to just discussing this orally, and then we'll conclude and open up to questions. Okay, so how do we get there? How do we bring this state of clarity to the forefront of our consciousness? And the Baal haTanya describes at length how to meditate on Hashem's awesomeness. The more time we spend thinking about Hashem's awesomeness, the more of our energy we invest, and the more time we spend really connecting with Hashem's absolute truth, the more we can feel it, and the more we come to a place of love for Hashem. And from a place of love for Hashem, we have the energy. We actually can do that baruch. We can draw down Hashem's energy into our lives and into our world. And what does that look like? I saw this week a very interesting letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He wrote this letter, and I am sorry, I meant to bring a copy of it. I meant to say exactly the date, and I did not. But this was a letter written to two young men who went to a community in Russia where the people in Russia were just beginning to come out into the open. It was just after the fall of communism and the emergence of religious freedom. It was literally the dawn of religious freedom in Russia. And so these two young men went to Russia, and I think the name of the place where they went to was Kherson. And they went to that place and they made a camp for the children, and they made Torah classes for the adults. And they did, I think it was a Lag BaOmer parade. They spent a few months there doing various Jewish activities that celebrated Judaism and Jewish pride, and really supported the emergence of spiritual freedom in that country where for so many years it was oppressed and you weren't allowed to practice Judaism. And so they, at the end of their time there, they wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe detailing their experiences there. And as part of the letter, they included a note of thanks, that the community leaders had written them a note of thanks, and actually had written a letter to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the one who sent them there, a note of thanks. And they wrote, thank you for bringing, the opportunity to practice Judaism and to learn more about the Torah and our heritage and our faith, and a beautiful letter. And they signed it, and in all their names, and they signed it. When you look at the signatures, you see that most of them signed in Russian, and the few that signed their names in Hebrew, it was not a very smooth practice signature. Like each letter was carefully formed by somebody who was writing in Hebrew for the very first time, or for it wasn't a smooth handwriting. It was they worked hard to write their names in Hebrew. It was an effort. And the Rebbe wrote back a beautiful letter to these people who wrote him this letter of thanks. And he said that it is clear from their letter that their neshama is shining brightly in a very revealed way. And that was a beautiful language. And as I read that letter, I thought about this, because what we're trying to do is how does that letter express, how does the fact that they wrote that letter reflect the radiance of their soul coming out in full glory? Because the fact that they could appreciate it, they were They were locked away. They were in a spiritual prison for so many years. But the fact that they were free to practice Judaism, to learn the Torah, to start doing mitzvahs, and that they appreciated and that they loved it, that was their soul in action. That was their soul on fire in all its radiant glory. And from that place of openness, they expressed their thanks to these individuals and to the Lubavitch Rebbe. And so that's what we're trying to get to, because the fact that we acknowledge Hashem's truth is one thing, but if it's deep within, if it's buried within our subconsciousness, we that's not radiating in our consciousness and in our lives. So, but how do we get there? We have to think about Hashem. We have to think about Hashem enough and in ways that actually develop our sense of love for Hashem. And that's what we do really every single day in davening. As we go through davening, every single bracha, first we thank Hashem for the details of our, the individual blessings. If you look at the Siddur, there's individual blessings for all the, the fact that we could see, the fact that the earth is on top of the water and not the water on top of the earth, the fact that we can open our eyes, the fact that we could stand up straight, all of these are blessings from Hashem that we do not take for granted. And then we move out into the bigger world and we talk about how Hashem gives life to every creature and sustenance and every leaf and every animal and every creature in the universe. And then we move into the brachas of Shema, where we talk about the angels and how they have whatever they need and how they praise Hashem. And from there, we reach the Shema, in which we express our Hashem's oneness. And we also, in those words, we express our oneness, Hashem's empowerment of us, and our identity as being one with Him. And from there, we affirm and express our love. And you will love Hashem with your whole heart. And when we say those words, where the whole purpose of davening is to feel it on some level. And every day, once we do that, we get to the Shemona Esrei, which is now we have the power to draw down Hashem's energy into our lives. From that place of clarity, from that place of absolute love, we have the ability to draw down Hashem's blessings into our world and into our lives. Now the Baal HaTanya talks about something else, which we'll wrap up with. He says that when we love Hashem and we really value Hashem as the power of the universe and the essence of our soul and the secret of our existence, when we look at anything we love in our lives, anyone we love, beginning from ourselves and to every person we love and to everything that we love, and if we look at that and recognize that it's all Hashem, then we love Hashem. And we wanna, and from that place of loving Hashem, we are so excited to connect with Hashem, to bond with Hashem, to indulge in our relationship with Hashem, to delight in our relationship with Hashem. And then from that perspective, we love doing a mitzvah. The opportunity to put a penny in the pushka, or to light the Shabbos candles, or to, celebrate Shabbos is Hashem's embrace. It's the opportunity to bond with someone we really, really love, to do something we truly value. We could only experience that delight in a mitzvah if we really love Hashem. So that's what it looks like what the Lubavitch Rebbe wrote to those people. When you love a mitzvah and you appreciate it, that's what it looks like when your soul is unleashed, when you're free, when your soul is being expressed, when you see it, when you feel it, when you touch it. You love doing a mitzvah. You appreciate it. You enjoy it. You delight in being able to light that Shabbos candle, because in that second, you're embraced, enwrapped in Hashem's love, in Hashem Himself. And because we value Hashem, then that makes us feel so happy. And then we feel sad, or we feel a sense of loss when we miss an opportunity to do that mitzvah, or when something seems beyond us. But let's say our soul is hidden within our subconsciousness. Let's say our soul is in Golus. You know what happens then? Our soul is in Golus. it's not touched. But you know what's touched? Our heart is in captivity. Our heart, the heart that Hashem gave us, our heart that could have been beating and pulsating with a sense of excitement and delight in doing a mitzvah. Now our heart is going to delight in ice cream or in chocolate or in any other worldly pleasure. Now, there's nothing wrong. Hashem wants us to take delight in worldly pleasure. The context of how the Baal HaTanya is talking about it is like, this is the epitome. This is the epic joy that, this is what I strive for. I strive at the end, when you reflect on your day and you want to think about, how was my day? You always think about like the most important thing that you did, or the most important thing that happened, the most important, the most, valuable experience that you had that day. So if we really value doing a mitzvah, then I can look back at a day where I made money and I experienced success in a different way, and I spent time, I had good food, and I had a great exercise session, and I did all those things, and I also did a mitzvah, right? But if I value Hashem, then all of those things pale in comparison to the moment in which I chose to show up for Hashem, in which I chose to choose Hashem, which I chose to let Hashem's desire make a difference, where I davened. I took the 2 minutes, I took the 5 minutes to actually say Moda'ani, to say Shema. Why? Because Hashem matters to me. The more Hashem matters to me, the more that moment where I did a mitzvah matters to me. And the more it matters to me, it matters more than other things that I did that day. And it's the same thing with problems that we have. The more our relationship with Hashem matters to us, right? The more we rejoice in closeness with Hashem, the more pain we experience from the distance, from the fact that we are in Golus, from the fact that we do not yet have the Bais HaMikdosh, or that we don't have that opportunity to learn to fulfill all the mitzvahs of the Torah, because we don't have a Bais HaMikdosh. And the more we feel that, so a bad day is not just because I got a parking ticket, or because something else happened, or somebody insulted me, or because, someone, obviously loss of life, I would attribute to in the same category as of a darkness in the world. It's one and the same. But I'm talking about the day-to-day frustrations and disappointments, like getting that parking ticket, or, losing something of physical value that, how much is that worth? How much is that worth? How much of my drama in my day is going to be in things that are other than Hashem? And how much of my drama and my energy and my emotions are going to be around Hashem, right? So the more we value Hashem, the more energy, emotional energy we have around our relationship with Hashem. And the less we value Hashem, the more energy and drama we have in our relationships with other people, in our relationships with food and money and clothing and our looks and all of that stuff. And that is a state of Golus, when all the energy and all the drama of our lives is not about Hashem, but about physical problems. The problems are in our relationships, my weight, my body, my clothing not fitting me nicely, or all this stuff. When that becomes the drama, that's when my heart is in captivity. My heart has been hijacked by otherness. My heart has been hijacked by Golus. My heart has been hijacked. My heart is imprisoned, enslaved to a force other than Hashem. And so how do we get out of there? How do we get out of there? Now we go back to the original verse, the original pasuk, with which the Baal HaTanya opened this with, and that is Tzion b'mishpat tipada v'shaveha b'tzedakah. Tzion, Yerushalayim, will be redeemed with mishpat, with Torah law, and shaveha b'tzedakah, her captives will be redeemed with tzedakah. The Baal HaTanya says the double language in these words relates to the two levels within our own personal Golus. Tzion, that Yerushalayim within us, that absolute clarity within us, it needs to be redeemed. It needs to be unleashed, but it's never, ever, ever in captivity. It's never, never locked away. It's in darkness. You only need to turn on the light. And the Baal HaTanya says, Mishpat represents Torah law. And Torah is called Torah of light. And so by turning on the light of Torah, by learning Torah, we turn on a light of awareness and we redeem that part of our soul that has absolute clarity that Hashem is true. That part of our soul that is called Yerushalayim, that's complete and pure and holy. Yerushalayim itself is redeemed through Torah learning, because learning Torah is like turning on the light of awareness, turning on the light of our soul, feeding our soul until we become aware of it. But it's very nice to be aware of it. I want to have emotions about it. I want to feel it in my heart. And there's so much stuff getting in my way. There's so much otherness. There's so much trauma. There's so many things that I believe that's not true, that gets in my way of really appreciating the depths and the beauty of my soul. What do I do then? So of course, throughout the Mimer, the Baal HaTanya talked about that path towards developing love for Hashem, meditation, davening, really replacing our values one by one with the true values we want to live by. But here, the Baal HaTanya says we also have a shortcut. There's a shortcut we could take. Vishalveha b'tzedakah. We could redeem our captives. Our inner captivity gets redeemed through giving tzedakah. Because when we help another person, when we stretch beyond our comfort zone to help somebody else in need, what we're showing is compassion. We're showing like, I realize that you need help and I want to be there for you. And when we show compassion for others, Hashem shows compassion to us. So, and he supports our work and he supports our process and he enables us to feel joy where we want to feel joy and to feel drama and energy where we want to feel the energy. Hashem helps us release our heart from the captivity of being slaves to loving and to being so entrenched in the culture that surrounds us, the culture, the beliefs, our childhood, that we were so, the beliefs and the value system that we've been holding on to for so long. It's so hard to let go of because it's so firmly embedded in our subconsciousness. Giving tzedakah helps release that. Giving tzedakah, giving tzedakah, when we show compassion to others, Hashem shows compassion to us. And that's the meaning of these words. Tzion v'mishpati pada, our inner Yerushalayim, our part of us, I just want to say another word for the Tzion. Tzion actually means a sign. The holy Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, said about himself, I am a sign for the world. When you walk down the street and you see a baker, right? You see somebody who works in the bakery store. You're like, oh, that's the baker, right? When you see, they say about children that when they see their teachers and their principals outside of school, it's like, oh my God, what? There's my teacher. Oh, wow. Like they go crazy because they believe somewhere in their mind that their teacher sleeps in school and lives in school and actually never leaves the school. She's always there, right? And certainly the principal, they like associate their teacher with the school. There's the teacher. Wow, she's on the street, she's shopping, she's in a restaurant, she's at a wedding. It's like amazing for them because to them, the teacher is in school. Each of us, the roles that we take, whether we are sisters, daughters, mothers, friends, a boss, a worker, whatever, a doctor, a lawyer, a psychologist, the roles that we take become very, very much attached to our identity. And Tzion, the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, when people saw him, just like when people see a teacher, they say, oh, there's the teacher. When they see the fish store man, they're like, oh, there's the fisher, There's a fish store man. There's a psychologist. There's the doctor. There's the lawyer. There's the therapist. When they saw Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, they said, oh, there is a carrier of Hashem's light. There is Hashem is true. When they saw him, they're like, Hashem is true. He said about him, and it was not a state of arrogance when he said this, and he knew this. He was like, I am a sign of Hashem in this world, because everybody, I am so connected with Hashem, and my connection with Hashem is so broadcast in my consciousness and in my reality, in my behavior. Everybody knows. There goes a sign of Hashem. And we all have that part of us. We all have that part of us, the Tzion, the part of us that the second we touch it, the second we see it, it's like nothing but Hashem. It's nothing but a carrier of Hashem's light, nothing less. Nothing less and also nothing more, because we don't need more. So that we all have that part of ourselves. Tzion represents that part of ourselves that is so firmly identified with Hashem himself that we are a sign that Hashem exists. We are a sign that Hashem is true. We ourselves, our very presence, our very existence, the Jewish people as a whole and individually, the fact that you are alive today means that God is true. What did somebody once say? If you don't, if you live in the Middle East and you don't believe in miracles, then you're not being realistic, right? You're not being realistic. If you see the Jewish people and you see that they exist and you don't believe, you know that God exists, because how else would we be here? We are a miracle. But beyond just being a miracle, we're a reflection of Hashem's light, because that's who we are. And that's who we have at the deepest core of ourselves. And that part of us is never hijacked. It's always there. It just needs to be uncovered. It needs to be discovered. And how do we do that? By turning on the light. But our heart, our experienced self, our experienced emotions, that could be hijacked. We could have drama in our lives that has nothing to do with Hashem. We have drama in our lives where we feel that we are nothing, we're worthless, and that person stole my identity, and she stole all my money, and I'm a failure, and I'm a loser, and I'm angry, and I'm miserable, and resentful, and toxic, and I was abused, and therefore I'm always going to be a victim, and I will always be that part of us is capped, and that's possible to be capped. Those emotions, that emotional space in our physical bodies, in our physical hearts, that could be hijacked. Our physical hearts within our bodies could be hijacked. And in addition to thinking about Hashem and meditating and replacing all those ideas, what we want to do is give tzedakah. And it's very, very interesting, because the Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of the things he did more than anything else in the world, that he's so famous for, that people know, is that every single Sunday he would stand and distribute, make each person who came a messenger, give this $1 to charity, give this $1 to tzedakah, wherever you are. And after every talk that he delivered, he did that in the later years. He would always be distributing, encouraging us to give tzedakah. And if you think about it, like really, out of all the mitzvahs in the world, you pick tzedakah. But when I learned this, I was thinking about it. You know what? In our generation, we need that extra shortcut. We need that tzedakah, because we have so much trauma. We have so much in our psyche, in our subconscious, that feels like we're in captivity. And we need Hashem's blessings. We need Hashem's revealed compassion. And so every time we give tzedakah, we are, we're pressing the play button on Hashem's compassion to help us release us from our trauma, from the toxicity, from the hijackers, from the beliefs and values that have hijacked our bodies, our emotional, our physical heart, in that space where we want to feel love for Hashem. We want to feel worthy. We want to feel our dignity. We want to feel our passion. We want to feel energy in our relationship with Hashem, but instead we're stuck. We're stuck. So we give tzedakah, that helps us release that. And that's the mimer. That's the path to personal geula, to personal redemption. And the Baal HaTanya actually addresses that in this mimer. in this text that while a person is on here in this earth, we can achieve a much greater sense of attachment with Hashem, even more than in all the heavens. You know, they talk about Gan Eden, right? Being like the, you know, beautiful place where right? The souls bask in Hashem's light. But that's only Hashem's light. Here in this world, we have Hashem himself. Every time you do a mitzvah, you're embracing Hashem himself, and he is embracing you. And that spiritual energy is incomparable to anything in the world, even to the heavenly worlds. And that's why the minute a soul passes away, I remember on the way, I must have shared this before, but I'll say it again. I remember on the way to the Levaya of my father, there was so much. It was on a Friday, and we were arranging the actual space where he was going to be buried, and we were so busy. And all of a sudden, oh my! It's actually now is a Levaya. And we piled into the car. We were going to get another car. We ended up with only one car. We piled in, and we were like literally sitting on top of each other. We just didn't have time. I didn't want to miss it. And as we're getting close, my husband tells my boys, quick, tuck in your tzitzis, tuck in your tzitzis. And it was with such a sense of urgency because we were about to tumble, we were going out of the car, and they had to tuck in their tzitzis. And I asked him why. He said, because it's like teasing the soul. The soul is actually by the funeral, by the Levaya, the soul, the neshama is right there. It's right here. And it can no longer do a mitzvah. It can no longer achieve that wonderful, beautiful connection with Hashem. And so when it sees the tzitzis, it's like a real tease. Like, hey, I want to be doing that. That's not. So you tuck in the men tuck in their tzitzis so as to respect that yearning, to respect that reality that the soul experiences, the painful loss of no longer being able to do a mitzvah. And that's why, the greatest thing we can do in honor of a departed person, honor of somebody who passed away, is do a mitzvah in their honor. Every time you do a mitzvah, it's like sending a gift package up to heaven. You're sending them a parcel of love, a connection and light of such preciousness that they cannot achieve. They can't get it without you. It's like they're in a place that's so beautiful, but there's one thing that they cannot get, and that's a mitzvah from down here in this earth. And they really, really appreciate every mitzvah that we do down here is a beautiful, not just a merit for the soul, but it's a gift, a very, very precious offering that's priceless in heaven. So it's a beautiful question. Thanks for asking it. Absolutely. Our bodies are very holy to facilitate this journey. And it's very interesting because it says in Kabbalah, and it's explained in Sifrei Hasidus, right? That we start off, we're born, right? A soul within our bodies. Our body is like a container for the soul. When something is a container for something else, it would seem that the soul is much more important than the body, right? Because it's only a container. It's only the vessel through which the soul can be expressed in this world. And yet, there's something so holy and so beautiful about a body, because basically, when we say Hashem chose us and Hashem wants to have a relationship with us, that choice that Hashem makes is specifically within our bodies. It's not within our soul, because he could have put our soul anywhere. He put it into this body. That means this body has an unbelievable holiness. And it says in Hasidus and in Kabbalah that when Moshiach comes, we will see the bodies as being more supreme than the soul. And recently I was thinking about how in today's world, we always used to have, in the therapeutic process of healing was always about, unleash the power of your soul, right? And the primary domain of the soul is in our mind, right? The work of the soul to unleash itself in the body happens through meditation, right? But now everybody's talking about the body. and the body keeps the score, and the body is, you know, is what gets us, you know, is where the trauma is. And I think that all this attention on the body and unleashing the, you know, letting go of the toxicity from the body itself is about, and how that is even a deeper level of consciousness is just it's a sign to me that like we are really close to the geula, which is the geula is a time at what, you know, it clearly says that when Moshiach comes at the time of the geula, we'll see that supremacy of the value of the supreme value of the body over the soul. And that's what this work, you know, that's what we're seeing. It's very interesting. Absolutely, we're holier than the angels, much holier than the angels. The angels were created either on the second day of creation or the fifth day of creation, right? There's a difference of opinion of when the angels were created. The Jewish soul, the neshama, was created, preceded all of creation. It's pretty powerful. By the way, when we say Shalom Aleichem on Shabbos, right, we're welcoming the angels into our home. Shabbos, right before we make Kiddush, we're about to make Kiddush, which means that's the blessing that we say to establish this feast as a holy event, a connected event, a meal where we are celebrating our connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with Hashem, right? And as we do that, we know that the angels come into our home to be with us as we welcome the Shabbos. So we say, Shalom Aleichem, welcome. And then we say, Teizchem L'Shalom. Why are they leaving? And the answer is because the angels cannot bear to stand the holiness of Shabbos and the holiness of what we are experiencing. If they would stay there, they come for a second. They can't stay there because if they would stay there, they would expire. They can't tolerate it. It's like too much light for them because they see the light. We're in Golus, we're experiencing this tremendous spiritual energy when we celebrate Shabbos, but we don't see it. It's like there's a curtain on that light, but it's there. And the angels could see it. So that's why the angels can't stand it. But we could stand it, not just because we cannot see it, but because we are inherently more connected to Hashem himself. Or to use your words, we're holier than the angels. Yeah. Anyways, may we merit, please Hashem, to unleash, to release, to redeem us from captivity. Tzion b'mishpat tibadeh v'shaveha b'tzedakah. We should experience this on a personal level. We should experience this on a global level. Yerushalayim should be freed. Eretz Yisrael should be freed. The whole world should be free of Golus. May that happen today, way before Tisha B'Av, and may this year's Tisha B'Av be a real holiday, a real time of celebration, a real Yom Tov with Moshiach. Thank you all again for joining. I want to be clear, I'm not promoting any kind of therapy here other than soul therapy. I'm a very big proponent in the power of the soul, and I believe that the soul, unleashing the soul is a very healing force, not just spiritually, but physically and emotionally, psychologically, on so many different levels, 100%. And I'm not saying nobody should, my point here in talking, even mention anything about that is just, it's very interesting that in the world, there is more attention being paid to the value of a body and the role that the body has in our emotional, spiritual, psychological wellness. And I believe that I believe that's part of being closer to Moshiach, which is a time when we will see the body as more supreme than the soul. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't do the work of unleashing our soul and allowing our body to express our soul and not letting anything get in the way of that soul being expressed and allowing our light of our soul to really wipe out the darkness of all the values that are getting, all the work we always speak about.
So I have a
And let's talk about what it means in practical terms. In practical terms, because what's the relevance of this question? It means that we have to, some people think I'm going to just do spiritual work. I will ignore my body, and the Tanya and really Hasidus in general doesn't embrace that philosophy. On the contrary, the soul has to be fully integrated into the body, and the body has to fully be integrated into the soul. It's not like one is holy and one is, oh, well, not so important. It's just a container. It's just an empty shell. It's nothing. We need it to be healthy. We need it to be strong. We need it to be energized. And we want to experience our soul in every part of our body. And for that, we need to take care of it. And ultimately, when Moshiach comes, it will be revealed that the body has a certain holiness even greater than the soul. A soul can want to do the mitzvah from today till tomorrow and back, but only a body can do it. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next week, Emir Tashem.